Hey everyone, my name is Lauren McCullough and I'm co-founder and CEO of Tromml, and I'm excited to have a chat today with Alec Coughlin, who is an AI expert in what Alec's like all things AI. I feel like that was the like context in which I met you.
AI expert, that's way too kind. Someone called me an AI influencer recently and I cringed at that. I'll say AI expert, but maybe let's go
Is
with
that
leader.
better?
I love this stuff all
Yeah,
day.
no. Yeah, and Alex and I have gotten to know each other, had a lot of really amazing conversations around stuff that both of us are working on, and
Yeah.
thought this would be a good opportunity for us to have a little chat about what we're seeing as a company is this, emergence of the possibilities of AI, with some analysis paralysis that's getting people a little bit stuck in how to get into execution mode. So
100%. Yeah. And I can't wait for you to tell us, us being the audience and myself included. I've heard it before, but talk to us about your business. And please don't forget to talk about that thing over your right shoulder, which I love, that old school Bronco with the
oh,
circular, headlights, which if you don't like that, you're crazy.
oh,
But don't
definitely.
forget to mention that as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I drive a new Bronco, and whenever people are, I have a Bronco, people are like, oh, a new one or old one. And I have to like cringe and say a new one. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I was going to say,
like,
you'll
if
get there.
only,
You'll
if
get
only it
there.
was like a 72. Yeah, it's good. But yeah, no, it's been great too. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lauren McCullough. Like I said, co-founder and CEO of Tromml, and my co-founder and I have been in the automotive industry the last 5-6 years now, and it's been just such a joy being able to see like a very community-based industry kind of going through these like next generation of changes. There's been a lot of private equity activity, there's been emergence of digital commerce, and now we're in the era of AI. And for us as a company, we really see our business as being the filter for all the massive amounts of data that exist in this industry to help people understand where to spend their time and attention, right? So it's improving this analysis process. And the name Tromml comes from I think, Alex, I told you this story, right?
I love
The
that.
piece
Yeah.
of equipment in gold mining that helps us separate the dirt from the little gold nuggets. So that's really how we feel like we operate as a company. But when we really look at what we're doing from a high level is we are enabling AI, right? I wasn't in the workforce during the early days of the internet. But this is kind of my opportunity to capture that next wave of technology, particularly because, I think the stat that I saw was that AI adoption is happening 5 times faster than the early days of the internet. And being able to put that to work for an industry that we care so deeply about has been like a really fulfilling last couple of years, and be very fulfilling next 5 to 10 years too.
No doubt. No doubt. So I'm gonna throw you an alley-oop. Your industry, how much I want to have a car problem, including I'm going to have those circular headlights. Shout out to anyway. I don't want to go there, but
We're data people with a car problem is the joke I like to make.
I love that so much. I can envision exactly the one that I would want to have amongst others. But anyway, your industry, the world that you operate within, has a lot of data, but not so much data that's been processed into insights, and certainly not into compound AI systems that can enable top and bottom line expansion and explosive growth, which is why private equity groups love that space, right? And they should know you.
Exactly.
And we give you a big shout out on that right now. If you're a private equity person, which is a number of my network, I'm sure you're watching this, you should take a look at these guys because this is a no-brainer. So, Lauren, tell me, if you were to walk into a $500 million a year prospective client in this space who's a couple clicks back on the highway in terms of their understanding and embrace, but they want to use AI, they don't really know what it means, but they want to use it because they believe that there's an opportunity. How do you unpack it?
Yeah, it's partially recognizing that one of the things I heard a lot when we started doing this work, and I run a think tank for MEMA, an aftermarket manufacturers group, the AI think tank. And one of the things that we were really firm about when I spoke a lot last year at industry events is you don't need an AI strategy. You need to understand what business problems you have that can be solved with AI. And in the automotive industry, like you mentioned, right, full of data, and we have obsessed about solving the product data problem and the fitment data problem for the last decade. And there's still plenty of work to be done there. But that has been something we dedicated ourselves, right? To how do we create digital catalogs? How do we create this commerce exchange? But now what I think the next frontier in our growth is, okay, well, how do we look at our transactional data? How do we look at historical performance? How do we make better forecasts? Because I constantly hear from people, well, we have an inventory forecasting tool, but like it's not looking at a lot of variables, right? It's a pretty basic system, because every time you add more data into a non-AI system, it gets bogged up. But AI thrives in this environment where data is flourishing. And we see companies at such a different maturity level. And it's interesting because when you break it down to the business problem, AI has a role in a lot of these, depending on if it's a machine learning application, a narrow AI application. And some companies will speak with, right? They're like, oh, we've done all this work and having a data warehouse, and we've even gotten our data normalized, and it's in a really good place. And I've had multiple people say to me the exact same comment that said, well, and then we went out and bought Power BI, click, insert the blank, thinking we were getting an analytics tool, just to realize we actually got a visualization tool. And that's fine. Like, I am pro visualizations. I think they can tell a powerful story. But if you're selling 1 million parts across 100 different locations, not really going to tell you what you need to know and where to put your time and energy. And so in that ability, one of the things we've really focused is, okay, once we have this data warehouse, let's actually put this into action. So let's extract the insights that can actually help you understand where your priorities lie. And let's take this and put it into a story that your sales rep can understand to have a better conversation with your customer. But then there's also on the inbound side a lot of benefits, right? Because we can build data that can handle they can be unstructured. So if you want to map up your sales data that has never been processed because it was on handwritten notes, this might be possible. I'm going to speak at a heavy duty warehousing distributing conference next week. People are still doing call-in orders almost exclusively. That's like the huge part of the industry. But there's still data footprints, and we now have the ability to process that in such a more powerful way. And layering in those sources is really, I think, where it gets exciting. So what happens when you take those unprocessed POs, put them into your data warehouse, have insights? Well, now let's let in our CRM data. Well, now that sales rep not only gets conversations around what that person's bought, but they look at the last 100 times they've met with them, right? Oh, they always want to talk about pricing. So let's talk about pricing. And it's unlocking. I mean, this proper adoption of AI in this industry will unlock billions. I mean, absolutely billions. And there are companies right now who can't afford to lose much more. There's a lot of margin shrinkage is happening across the supply chain. And so this is really our chance, I think, as an industry to recognize that there's a rising tides moment and we can all perform better with just better efficiencies.
I love it. There's so many directions I could ask you a follow-on question there, but I'm gonna jump to this direction, for the audience, and I'm going to assume that people heard what you just said. They believe you, right? And then they want to go a little deeper. So let's start with, you said, which I love, is like, you don't need to think about AI as an AI strategy. You need to think about the business outcomes you're looking to generate, the business problems that you are tier one and want to solve for. And as you kind of think that through, then you can apply different dimensions of the AI cookbook, for lack of a better term, to unlock the value, because it's a general purpose technology, right? It's like inventing electricity or whatever, right? All of a sudden we have electricity. We didn't have it, a week ago. Holy cow, here we go. So can you help the audience understand a little bit about what is the difference, generally speaking, between visualizing data or maybe visualizing dimensions of analytics, like an output of some sort, some lightweight stuff, versus introducing the rock stars that do the data science and hoping that they have some dimension of data engineering, capabilities to support their ability to do what they do? And what are the implications of all of that in light of what you said about define the business, problem you want to solve, and then apply different component parts of the AI ecosystem?
So you're saying, how do those data scientists like create those efficiencies?
Yeah, to connect the dots between, maybe give an example. Let's say someone says, hey, Lauren, I think I have a whole lot of data about my customers that's disjointed. And I wonder if I connected the dots between the data, is there some version of AI that can help me then, better improve my outbound sales to then drive margin expansion, top and bottom, et cetera? Like, just like just riff on it a little bit. And obviously,
Yeah.
please integrate your company into it. That we're here
Yeah.
for that too.
Yeah. No, I think it's right. It's kind of the way I think about it in an oversimplistic form is right. We're thinking inputs, outputs, right?
Yeah.
And and these systems that are in the middle that are making the inputs feed the outputs, right? Again, just to kind of oversimplify it. And so, when you talk about having, let's just say CRM data, right? And you just have a bunch of notes that someone's put in some old system, trying to create any type of reporting on that, even with the best data scientists 5 years ago would have been nearly impossible. Now, if you have a really, really good team, they might be able to figure out how to dump this into a model and build this internally. But the problem, what we find in this industry is that these people are already stretched so thin.
Mhm.
Like they're so busy. And the good data scientists are so difficult for people in our industry to get often. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't any, but it is difficult because it is a talent gap. And so when you're trying to build your own models, it's like, are you doing that efficiently? And that's the thing we have a conversation with a lot of our, customers or potential customers is they're looking at, oh, do I build it or do I buy it? It's like, okay, you can build it yourselves. But meanwhile, just remember that we've spent 2 years building this every single day and literally only focused on this specific problem. Right. And now we're talking about the unlocking of it. And I think when you think about this unstructured data, like it does just feed so many possibilities, but you have to recognize that what I'm really processing the CRM data for is, so my sales reps know who to call today. What's the next best opportunity, right? And because I'm pulling a couple of different points together, or we just got a rebate on suspension systems, and I want to see who's talked about suspension systems in the last 3 months, so I can make sure I call those customers so we can increase our sales in suspension systems and get that rebate from our manufacturer. Like that stuff is like in a black box right now for, I would say, 99.9% of the industry. There's a couple people in here who have figured this out, but it's very difficult. And think about when you bake this out into all these little opportunities, what's really possible. But without defining that your goal was to figure out what's the next best opportunity, you might not know how to train a model to process and normalize this data. It might have a different framework. And it's for us, like having really good data scientists on our team that know this industry, that have worked in this industry, that have sold parts in this industry for years. That's why we're building this tool, because we recognize it's unfeasible to build this custom every single time. Let's build a system and then adjust and tweak it to that specific customer's needs. And we have kind of a very heavy SaaS framework with some managed services on top. So it allows us to have that repeatability while also making sure people can get exactly what they need. But by being in the industry, it puts us in a better box anyways.
So 1,000%. So here we go. Talk to us a bit about generalized versus vertical AI and where you sit on that equation, which I think I might know, but talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So when we think about kind of these generalized models, right? I mean, I think like the easiest way to understand it if it's new to you is to thinking about the ChatGPT environment that's set up, right? ChatGPT is a very powerful tool, and you go into the main interface and you don't know if it's going to ask you to analyze a spreadsheet, to write a dissertation, to, create an image. Like it has no idea. But then you go into these specified GPTs where it has a little bit of context, but it's still basically a generalized model with a little bit of context given. And to look into vertical AI is really just like leapfrogging that to the next level. And the way I'll explain it to people is, being in the automotive industry, if you're wanting to hire a really good e-commerce manager, would you hire someone who was at Revlon? Probably not, right? Because they have a completely different set of training. Now, it's not never relevant, right? It's not that you can never get value out of these generalized AI tools, but you probably want to do someone who is the head of e-commerce for, FCP Euro or one of the big brands in our industry, right? Or Dorman or someone like that, because they understand what questions to ask. Like when we'll talk, if you go buy generalized software, and this is something we hear being a vertical SaaS vendor, is first conversation, we're asking them very industry specific questions. We know if we're working with a retailer, we know the pros and cons of every distributor. We understand the context of fitment and application data. We get these nuances that are really critical. And AI is no different than a person, right? It's just, we just call it the intern, right? It's just an intern. It does exactly what you tell it to do, and it learns over time as long as you give it the right development. And so for us, it's like, let's take the generalized intern, right? Fresh out of college, and let's train it to be really, really good at our industry's biggest problems. And ultimately what it ends up being is training a team of them to do all very specific things for those industry problems. And like, could we process furniture data and be helpful? Probably. But we want to be the best tool for automotive, not an okay tool for everyone. And it's our dedication to that. I think that'll make us successful, because I do believe, the future of AI is vertical.
Yeah, I think one of the things you said there, that I just, the nuances, right? And treating the AI like a human, right? Like an intern, and maybe the intern graduates to, entry level over time after it graduates from college and so on and so forth. And it keeps learning and contributing and having more impact inside of higher order and more, important workflows. So when you sit across from prospective clients, and let's assume that you're sitting across from one that's a senior business leader that might not be the most technical in your space, as you said, they're stretched thin. They might not have the most advanced, data science and engineering team and or product and technology. When the light bulb goes on, right? Because a lot of this stuff is just very complicated. When the light bulb starts to go on conceptually about, wow, it sounds like if I can define a business objective and or outcome I want to get to in the near future here, maybe I can start working with Lauren and her team, and technology, of course. Tromml, how does it work, right? In your mind, how do you take them from, I'm starting to get it and I'm interested, to defining that first project and getting you all in a position to start to understand how you can take all that nuanced understanding, and as you said, your SaaS that's verticalized with some managed services over the top of it, and start shrinking that time to value ratio to help them overcome the fear of getting started before they see the results, right? There's always the chicken and the egg.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a challenge, right? With the adoption of any new technology, and AI is no different to that. And I think that people that were early e-com, early cloud, early SaaS, right, face this exact same problem. And what I've really seen is a framework. One, first of all, we have to trust each other before we really talk about the work we're going to do. And so that's, again, for me, what I want to do when we talk to new customers is get to know each other. And I need to trust them too, right? Because as a startup, we are putting a lot of risk in what customers we spend time with. And if we spend time with you as a customer and you're don't care, that's a huge risk to me too. So we're earning trust bidirectionally. But we're really finding is, it's honing in on the potential unlock. And, if we're looking at a situation where we're like, all right, this is a $50,000 build out, and $5,000 to $10,000 a month to continue to support this. But the potential ROI is, let's even say it's only $5 million, and it could be way more for some of these bigger groups. It's a no-brainer. Like, if you were running a $100 million business and saw the potential to gain 5 by taking a $50,000 risk, if it works 10% as effectively as it could, right? Like, it doesn't even have to reach the standard that we believe of excellence is acceptable for what we want to deliver as a company. And it's, to me, honing in on those huge, unoptimized profits, or unlocked revenue that it's just waiting there to be unlocked. And if you can identify some of those, that becomes really powerful, because again, as long as you get a team that's focused on execution, focused on quality of delivery, what they're going to return back is, one, going to teach you a lot at minimum, but it's almost every time going to pay for itself in value. And I think that, again, I think that's a benefit we have of being a small team, right? Is and I'll tell our customers that too, right? We take risk working with you, but we know that you're taking risk working with a startup, right? It's that whole no one ever got fired for IBM. But let's be honest, IBM doesn't care if your project fails. We do, right? And when we have to remind people of that we are so invested in their success, because we're a startup, we have to have successes. And so I think that we can actually, with the right people, we end up having really amazing conversations around that, because it's kind of a roll up your sleeves and let's do this. And as we've already started seeing this just unlocking tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars in profits, right? When you start to do that before and after. But as we've gone up market to work with bigger folks, it's insane how much ROI we're going to be able to start unlocking for these folks. Again, just 20-year-old, 30-year-old problems that for the first time are solvable.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I hear you on the 1 to 10, the 1 to 50, the 1 to 100x. And I also know that one of the reasons why I'm so bullish on the private equity space in particular, embracing and understanding this stuff and applying it is because they tend to be quite focused on value creation and time to value. And I think now that we're 2+ years into this generative AI incredible era, post ChatGPT's launch by OpenAI, I think that there's a general sense of we're no longer, I don't think that anyone is considering, hey, should we do this? It's really just when and how. Because I think one of the things that you and I have spoken about, maybe you can, unpack this a bit more, is, we're getting into a position where if you take two companies and one keeps doing it the way they were doing it for the last 20 years, and then we got all sorts of disjointed data and deltas inside of all sorts of incorrect, pricing models, et cetera, versus one that, perhaps is fortunate enough to be able to work with you and with others, inside the building and out. You mentioned buy versus build. But if they start to really lean into a modern approach to people, process, and technology, how do you describe where either company might be in 6 to 12 months? And when will the company that doesn't embrace it have an existential event?
Yeah. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be to catch up. First of all, because the bet, for us, we're already have to be mindful of capacity. Right. And so we can only say as we bring on more customers, sometimes we have to say we can't start this yet. Right. And that's we're trying to get these people that are stuck in their heads to be all right, just so you know, if they go instead of you might be a month behind, which means you might be 2 months behind. Right. And it's this lagging process that I think it's hard to ever come up from. I think there's a period, we have a grace period, let's say this year, maybe next year, where you can dabble around and move a little slower. And really what you're talking about is just getting that competitive edge, right? Getting that head start. But after that, you're tripping off the starting blocks. And I don't think you're ever going to be able to catch up. And, right, that's the opportunities, I guess, for private equity, right? They want to be able to get a good discount on their money. But if they've already made that investment, as private equity to say, I'm buying this company at this price because I believe I can 2x EBITDA by creating efficiencies in their operations, there's no way in 2025 that AI is not in the center of that. Whether that be Gen AI tools, whether that be machine learning models, whether that be, using just those narrow AI applications to give you those pricing alerts, right? To optimize that inventory, to do whatever those key problems are. And you have to bring that on because again, and every day that goes by, you're losing profit, you're losing margin, but ultimately, like I said, the long-term consequences, you're losing market share. And it's not going to slow down. It's exponential growth. And that's why we think about our job as being on the lookout for the cutting edge technology, because we're not building every model from scratch, right? We are our job is to go out and find the best models and apply them to this problem set. And that's our job. And we obsess about it. We obsess about how to use AI for our own company, right? That's why we're as a startup, we can punch above our weight in marketing because we know how to use these tools really effectively. And it's no different for our customers. It's trying to really get them to recognize the efficiencies that can be created that don't make you have to keep adding people to your front line, that don't allow you to keep making bad buy decisions on products, that are improving your customer experience. And I think customer service is such a great use of different AI tools because, right, if it can take a third of the inquiries away from someone on the phone, and then that person on the phone can spend a third as much time getting the information they need, what a gain. Now, you don't need a new rep. You just need to make your reps better. And ultimately, what's kind of cool I like about it is in the human element is typically those people are a lot happier because people like to be good at their jobs. They like to feel confident in the decisions they're making. And a lot of people are guessing every day. So I actually think one of the values we want to provide is employee empowerment and happiness, because I genuinely believe most people, they like to feel confident. People feel confident when they're using these tools.
I mean, that's a layup for me, as you know, because I'm all about the humans plus the machines. And I know that is a little cliche, but I think we've all seen people who have a chance to operate within their circle of competence where they're just infinitely curious about the work they're doing versus the work that maybe machines a lot better at, right? So when you enable that calibration to happen, you're stepping into all sorts of high impact stuff, which benefits the human, it benefits the department, it benefits the business. So last question for you, I know we're coming up on time, but if someone is watching this and wants to learn more about you and about your company and about your team and, the things that you've mentioned, including use cases and maybe some case studies down the road, I know you got to be very, careful with that. And I totally respect that. But how do folks learn more about you and what you're up to and where can they find you?
Yeah. So, we try to make ourselves available, right, to be that kind of consulting arm, to be that knowledge arm. And so we always will, like, if people reach out to us, we'll always do a free consult. So that's something we're still able to do, right, as a startup right now, not available forever, probably. And then we also try to do a lot of education, like I said, at these industry conferences. We do have some information on our website, but I always think things are better as a dialogue. I like talking to folks. I learn something every time. And then for us, like, we want to be able to do our part in sharing to the industry. And so we're actually just wrapping up right now an ebook that we're going to have that's all about how to use AI for sales analytics. And so that's about a 40-page document we put together to try to help people get through and understand this process, again, getting out of the analysis paralysis from it. And then, we'll continue to work with the industry associations, AutoCare, MEMA, SEMA, all those groups to just make sure we're getting this word out because, I think that this is a really exciting time. And I'm just feel very fortunate to live in a time where I can bring this to an industry that I've, developed a lot of passion and interest in developing, right? And I see a lot of the automotive industry's biggest competitor is waste. And so we're out here to kind of fight that battle and try to get that reduced so we can have much more prosperous, successful businesses with happier people.
That's awesome. I'm so stoked to share. I can't wait to see that ebook you mentioned. Please be, for sure send that my way. Yep. And I'll make sure that, I chop that up and put it out there in the wild as well, because I'm sure there are a lot of folks in my network and AI with Alec community that are going to be very stoked to watch this and to consume that. And then maybe compete to get one seat on your bus and work with you because it sounds like an extraordinary opportunity.
Yes. Thanks so much, Alex.
You bet.